Today I wanted to do something a little different. I know I like to really focus on like the deeper yogic philosophy teachings, that kind of stuff in these calls. And a lot of you are just really vibing on this seasonal stuff you've been telling me lately, and kind of all like the mapping of the body and how to support the body through the seasons. So I wanted this call to just be more of like a kind of like a freestyle call. Like if things are coming up for you, if questions are coming up as we're in this discussion, if you're getting like insights, pop them into the chat, because like this is part of the work of this yoga practice that just fascinates me again and again and again, is just mapping and patterning the body. And so the body is so incredible. It is a walking stick, a walking version of our minds. And so our minds are not limited to our bodies. Our minds are like vast, right? Like our minds are all connected. That is why when someone's lying to you, you know it, because you can feel it. You can hear their thoughts. Even though it's not coming in directly, you can feel the dissonance in energy. And the bodies are the thing that appears separate, right? It's the illusion of separation. But the body is always revealing to us what is going on in the minds. And so that is why I really love mapping the body, because it gives us almost like an unbiased, you could call it, place in which to perceive our own reality. Because I mean, how many times have your mind tricked you? Or you've been in a situation where you're like, oh, that wasn't that great, you know? And so there's a layer of like delusion also that comes with the mind, just through like the programming and the conditioning and the way that the mind operates, right? The mind really operates by compartmentalizing and fragmenting like specific memories, hiding things away because there's not enough room. It's constantly being like received like millions of impulses every single day, every single second, microsecond, like something is coming into your consciousness, and it's a lot. And so when we play with the body and when we pattern the body, it's really to understand just like the deeper layers and roots of who we are. This fly is driving me crazy. And so basically the way that I really like to look at the body and to look at practice is from a seasonal perspective. Like we get to be human beings in a body on planet Earth. Like that's where we get to do it. And so the Earth has specific rhythms, right? Specific patterns inherent within it that are always influencing us. And so we get to play with those influences, and we get influenced by it all the time. What's your thoughts if the brain gets injured? How to realign the two? Like if the brain gets injured, oh, like the body and the mind? Yeah, brain injuries are hard. I'll talk about that in a bit. Maybe remind me, Nicole. You know, and it's like, it's all, I will say this about that actually, which is really important in this, is that it's all the same. Like we can't injure our body without injuring our mind, and we can't injure our mind without injuring our body. And so wherever something occurs in the field, it is like there's pressure, right? There's going to be a pressure, and it's going to release somewhere. And the specific place that it releases isn't necessarily where it comes from. Like when I had my stroke, it wasn't from my brain, right? It was from my heart. But my brain is where the pressure went. And so when we start to map and pattern things like this, what we're doing is we're looking for sources. We're looking for roots, right? Because like you said, I had my third TBI, right? Like, so when things recur, like there's deeper roots that we have to find. And that's why it's like, I wanted to be a detective when I was little, and I still feel like I am one because I love detective work. It's like, well, let's get to the root of this, you know, the operation game where you're like pulling stuff out. Like it's just so satisfying to know, you know, to like clean things up. So when we're playing in this field, it's really like first really paying attention to where things hurt, right? Paying attention to consistent pain, consistent injuries. Where did the fuse go out? That's what we're looking for. We're looking for these little places, these little pockets where pressure released, right? And I talked about in my last call where like all the like same frequencies of energies in this timeline of my stroke, it's like the energy just released there. It's not that specific moment in time. Can you guys hear me? It just said my live stream was disconnected. Am I the only one who lost the video and sound? Yes, you can hear me? Yes. Okay. 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 I'm going to take that confirmation that you can hear me. Okay. So the circuitry is really like, when we look at the spinal column, it's hooked into the brain, right? And so it's relaying information at all times. And as we know, we're electric beings, right? We have polarity in our bodies. And it's when polarity is very strong that we have more electricity, right? When the positive and negative poles, and that's why when cells are healthy, they're highly polarized. They have the positive and negative poles. When cells are unhealthy, they become depolarized. And so it's the electricity, the electric potential that's moving through our body that is like impulsing the world. And that impulses are being reflected back to us because we're matching, right, the impulses. And so when we take away like the human emotions and like you know, because we get in dynamics, right? We take that all away. What we're really doing is we're just impulsing reality, and reality is reflecting back to us exactly what is coming out. And so that's why like everything you've called into your life is for you, for your healing. As like hard sometimes as that sounds, trust me, it's hard to hear sometimes, but we've called it in. And so we're getting into these roots of like, why are my signals bringing in this radio station right now? I don't want to listen to it, right? And so this is where we really get to be like choice. We get to be in choice at all times to be like, okay, yes, I'm calling this in. And what part of me can I shift? Can I change, right? So that I'm not constantly bringing in this similar experience. Nicole said, yes, so fascinating. My first was 3rd grade, head got concussion. Then a car accident at 22 years old, and then assaulted at a soccer game at 26. I definitely feel like I'm missing something in my healing, even as a massage therapist. Yeah. And it's like, you know, there's these moments that like, things just get revealed. Like, gosh, before my stroke, I slammed my hand in the car door. My nail's finally growing back like 5 months ago. And then what else happened? There was like something big. I like slammed on my hammock and hit myself so hard. And then I had my stroke. And then it's only now that I'm learning about why it happened. And so sometimes it takes months, sometimes it takes years, sometimes it takes decades to eventually trace these like pathways of like, why did something happen? And why does it keep happening? Or what was the wake up call? What did I need to see? What did I need to stop for? What did I need to like really bring in? And so, yeah, and Nicole, I'm really curious if it's like left side or right side both times, or if it's different sides. And so the circuitry that's moving through our body is just connected into our mind. And so our mind is just like, okay, body, do this, do that. This is what I know. This is my programming. This is what like I'm here to do. And then the arms, you know, our competency, our capability. Yeah, and the white skunk visited me too 3 times. I will never forget about that skunk. And so our legs, or our lower body, everything in the legs is working with the sacroplex, the sacral plate. And so it's really us walking through the planet. And so it's like these like in the simplest ways, these big metaphors are like, how are you walking yourself through your life if things are going up in your legs, right? On the left leg, it's the root that hangs back. It's like, I'm in my home, I'm embodying, I'm like going through time, patience, like embodying myself in my home so I can step out with the right leg into the world, to be able to put my foot on the gas, to, you know, like have the willpower to literally traverse the territory of life. And so when I see things coming up in people's feet, it's like, how safe do you feel? Like, how safe do you feel in your body? How safe do you feel in the world? Right? And then where can we reconcile the places where you feel fear, where you don't feel like your physical body can support you, right? And this is all a kidney game. It's all ancestry, right? Because our kidneys are our deepest conditioning. It's our deepest programming of really like, what did mother and father tell me? What did I perceive from them, right? Because also they are in the programming of the whole ancestry. And so kidneys are very like, they're hard to work with because our memories at that time are so ethereal, right? Your memories when you're between 0 to 7, but especially 0 to 5, are like, you're in dreamland. So it's hard to really know what was true and what was not true, you know, or in different realities. Are there any yoga or breathwork practices to support the kidneys? In the virtual yoga studio, oh no, Deanna, you're not in it. In the virtual yoga studio though, if you are in it, we start every breathwork practice supporting the kidneys. I just rock back and forth, lower body stuff and watery stuff. So table pose, hands and knees, just like spinning the body. Because when you stir yourself up, it is like you're moving your waters, right? And so when people have kidney issues, you'll see it in the hair. The hair will be really like dry and crispy. You'll see it in like the bones, right? Arthritis and the teeth, right? And so this is like why teeth stuff are kidney stuff. And a lot of the times it's fear, right? Fear of being seen, fear of expressing truth. You know, like people will lose their teeth when they're like lying all the time, or, you know, they feel so scared in their body all the time because it's literally eating away at them. Left side. Okay, so the brain, the left side, they saw it happened on the right, but it landed in the left. Yeah, isn't that interesting? To take indents out of the right. The car accident, I had frontal shading. And so the left side of our brain, right, is our right eye, and it's like, it's the linear, it's the logical, it's the side that's like very pragmatic and practical, that has to draw the line and be like, I know exactly how to get there. And then the right is like, you know, it's like in all places and all times, and it's more emotional. Yeah, definitely explained a lot, especially after the brain mapping. Interesting. Yeah. And you know, it's like, it's always just information too. That's what I really try to, when I'm in my body, especially when you're having a personal experience. Gosh, when you're having a personal experience, it's so intense. It's like, okay, it's not personal, right? Like I'm in my body, like, what is this telling me right now? And there's always like signs, you know, and I always, one of the things that I do is the moment I'm overthinking something, I'm taking myself out of my intuition. And the moment I'm just like, okay, what does this mean? And I close my eyes and I really anchor myself into my truth, the answer usually comes through, right? And so I think my friend texted me last night out of the blue because I was like going through all my stuff. And he said, if you want to make the wrong decision, ask the advice from everyone around you. I was like, that's exactly like how I live my life. But then it's hard because we're like reflecting and we're like talking to our friends. What do I do about this? How do you feel about this? And they're giving you their opinions. And then we start to be taken away from ourselves. Even Sherry was talking to me about this, where it's like, I'm reading my horoscope every day. Like, is this influencing my day? And it's like the moment we're taking in anything that's not our own, it's going to start to influence our thoughts on our reality. And nobody knows what is going on deepest in your soul except for you. Nobody knows the exact right choice except for you, right? Nobody knows exactly how another person needs to be like really heard or treated or set, like talked to except for you. And so you have to like develop this sense of trust in your intuition. And it's just like learning anything. It's learning to act on it and then see the results reflected back and be like, that was a good decision. That's exactly what needed to happen or whatever, you know? And it's just like, we're just looking to trust our intuition more and more and more. And that's why I love the yoga practice and breath work, because the more you can come into your body and play in your body, and like, it's like a playground, you're understanding yourself more. The body is finally like, oh, you trust me, right? There's this release that takes place where it's like, oh my God, you trust me. You trust me enough to be here. Right? And then you're on your mat and things are coming up and there's like kidneys emotions. Like when we do deep hip work, that's kidney stuff. And that is what comes up, like all of the stuff in your basement. It's like, you know, floods and floods of water that you then get to like trudge through to like see the clarity. Because that's the wisdom of the kidneys, or the virtue of the kidneys is clarity, right? Being able to see clearly. Yeah. And sensitive to foods that I could eat before. Yeah, and you know, the body's just talking. It's just talking to you again and again. And so what we're doing is we're refining our communication channels to truly listen to what the body's saying. And the body, again, it's not personal with the body. The mind is like, well, it's like personal, you know? But with the body, it's just giving us the information it's giving us, and it's not lying. So like if you're twisted this way, you're twisted this way. Your liver's gonna get a lot of heat in it. You're gonna feel headaches in your head, right? There's gonna be like all these like things that rise up, and you're also gonna be like holding yourself out, like in, right? Instead of going out in the world. So it's just not gonna feel safe. And so it's just always influencing everything. And that's why we always wanna seek alignment, so that we can really know like where we out, right? That's why I love mapping the feet, like in the foot mapping series. And what we're doing in the shoulder mapping series is mapping the hands and then aligning the upper body. Because when we're playing in our upper body now, and the brachial plexus up here, you know, we'll feel issues in our hands that could be coming up from here. We'll feel issues in our wrists or our forearms or our upper arms or our shoulders or our rib cage. Like we have to really start to understand the body as just a whole entire like slew of circuitry everywhere, that like things are connecting and like moving around. And if you know like Chinese medicine and acupuncture, like all the meridian points, right? It's all connecting, right? And then the fascia that's holding that specific meridian line, it's all connecting. And so if that fascia is tight, yeah, that meridian line is going to be tight. That organ is going to be impacted. And that's why I so love when we're doing the pole work. And if you haven't watched the free video yet, like it's in the shoulder details. When you're doing this pole work, what you're doing is you're working the fascia of the whole entire arm. So you're working into the lungs, the large intestine, the pericardium, which is the protector of the heart. You're working into the small intestine. You're working everywhere in the upper body. And so we're really working with these organs up top. And so in autumn, right, especially in autumn, and kidneys are the winter, so I like talking about those two right now as we're in these seasons in the northern hemisphere. But the lungs are really our capacity, our ability to go out into the world. It's how we're intaking air and oxygen. Like our kidneys are like so earthy, and they're so like, they're watery, right? They're like us like deep in it. Whereas when we come up into the lungs, it's like, you know, the tree. And so we're like taking in the air of our environment, the atmosphere, which holds an incredible amount of ions. And that's why in breath work, like everyone tells me that when they start their breath work practice with me, they start eating less, they start having clearer thoughts, they feel like they have a ton more energy, because we're not accessing the food source of the prana, of the atmosphere, the space dust that is all around us, because you need the tools, right? We're just like eating and hoping to get the energy from the food, when like, yes, you have to do that too, but there's other pieces that we also need to be fed. Our spirit needs to be fed, our lungs need to be fed, and the physical body needs to be fed. Yeah, last month I had so much pain in my lower back on the left side. I think it was my kidney. Once I learned how to actually breathe deep and open my lungs, it's been fine, because lungs feed the kidneys. Yeah, and lungs are the one organ you can access, right? You can't stick your hands in your kidneys. It's like the joke is like when people, you know, like your kidneys are your toilets, right? They're paired with your bladder. They're like, they're getting the stuff out. And you don't, if your toilet isn't working, right, you don't shove your hand down in there, right? We look for different ways to fix it. And so in the Western world, it's so easy for someone to be like, I'm just going to buy something new, you know, let's take out a kidney, it's okay. But it's not about that. It's like, it's expressing something. And so when we learn to work with our lungs, what we're doing is we're feeding those deeper waters of our kidneys, our ancestry, our ability to, you know, feel safe in our body. And so when our lungs are constricted, contracted, when we have pain, when our shoulders are tight, when we're always slouched over, you know, we get these depressions up here and we're not breathing fully. What happens is that the lungs just get tighter, right? We have no capacity to inhale or exhale. And then we're putting ourselves in fear, in the stress response, right? Because our lungs and our breath is what is determining our nervous system. And our parasympathetic nervous system is activated when we're like relaxed, open. Think of yourself on the beach, breathing deep, or like walking in nature. You're just like relaxing. Whereas, you know, when you're out in the world, like everything's stressful and like the cars are honking and you're like getting tighter and tighter and contracted and you like can barely breathe, your sympathetic nervous system's activated. And we are in it way too often as a society because of our lives. Like, it's a lot to be a human right now, you know, like we can give ourselves grace, but we need the tools to get out of it, to know that we don't need to be stressed out when we're walking down the street, right? To be able to regulate our breath when the situation's stressful, when we're, you know, in places that we feel like contracted, we have the ability to, oh, my breath is short. Am I like feeling like I'm in freeze or fight or flight, right? And you can start to breathe deeply and start to manipulate. And this is where up top is really like your mediator, your magician, your steering wheel, you know, it's your thymus gland, right? It's what's connected to your heart, and the pericardium is the protector of the heart, right? This is the easiest meridian to feel if you ever just like pay attention to it. I just feel it. It's just like fire, like a big fire. And it's all about like, where are you steering your vehicle? Like, where are you headed? Right? Because if you always go in the same direction day after day after day after day after day, you're always just going to see the same sights. And there's no change, right? There's no new insights, right? And the moment you take a different turn, you're like, oh my God, I had no idea this was over here. I had no idea the store was here. These people were over here. You start to change direction. And then it's only when you start to change direction and take different paths and you start to discern like, what feels more right to me, right? And this is like, you know, the conveyor belt of society. It's like, okay, you have to choose between this, and then you get into this conveyor belt, and then there's no other direction, right? It's like, get the house, get the job, get the car, have the kids, retire, and that's the conveyor belt. for many of us here, it's like, okay, what's over there? What's over there? I want to go check over here and over there. And you start to find what feels good. You start to find your people. You start to feel what feels right. You start to be in the field of people that are doing it differently. And you're like, oh, I could do this too. Show me how, you know? And so again, it's like we're all leading each other back home. So everything up top in autumn is like, it's the lungs. It's your ability to not just be out in community handling it, right? But handling your heart and your feelings in your home. Because you have the 3 fires in your body. You have the fire in your basement, which is like your, you know, lower dantian. It's like the fire of like your reproductive organs. It's like the primal fire of desire. Then you have the fire of your heart, which is your second dantian. And that is the fire of like community, contact, conversation, because your tongue is connected to your heart, right? And so our speech is an aspect of our heart. And so, you know, stutters, like people not being able to talk, like not being able to express the truth, it is a heart issue. And then when we go up, we have our 3rd fire, which is the fire of our imagination. It's really us being able to, you know, look out and be able to, you know, envision a different future for ourselves, or, you know, look in that direction and then head that way and see what's over there. And so we're always playing with like these 3 aspects of ourselves: bottom, middle, top, right? Everything in the bottom is your safety. Everything in the middle is your community. And everything up top is your vision. And then we just keep splitting it. And so if you're in my foot map and you already know this, but then you have your left side and your right side. So you have left, everything that's like yin, that's the moon, that's feminine, right? It's lunar is like kind of crazy. It's like primacy. It's, you know, crying when you don't get what you want, especially in the lower body. It's very lunar, right? And then the right is solar. It's training, it's learning, it's skill building. It's really being able to like learn how to write, learning how to read, learning how to, you know, be like, I want to learn how to become a goldsmith and you learn it. You know, I'm going to learn how to make potions and you learn it. I'm going to learn yoga and you learn it. And then after you learn it, you move into like 3rd nature, which is center, right? How are you going to use it? What insights are you going to get, right? And so when we're doing all these maps, it's really, okay, where do I hold tension in my body? And if that tension keeps being there again and again and again, what is it telling me? Because it only takes one moment of insight for the whole body to shift. That's it, you know? But if it's not shifting, the insight hasn't dropped in yet. It's like a light bulb. It's never like, you know, we think it's a progression. We're like, I'm going to get there if I do it this many times each day. You hear something one way and you're like, oh my God, is that what they were saying the whole time? Right? And so there's just like light bulbs go off when you're at the right angle and you hear it right. And so the liver also is an aspect of our vision, right? The liver is the pituitary gland. So it is really master, like looking out, and vision is always linear, right? So, you know, when things are going on with like vision or like looking, right? It's like, what are you looking at? Is that what you should be looking at? Is that where you want to head? Because anywhere you're looking, you're going to start going, right? So you're driving your car and you look over here, you're like, oh my God, stay straight, or is that just me, right? You look in a direction, you start heading that way. And so that's why it's like, there's also this art of discernment, which is your spleen, which is the ability to think, right? To ponder, to masticate, to exercise good judgment. So the liver and spleen are side by side, right side liver, left side spleen. And so the liver is visioning and the spleen is discerning. It's like, should I go over there? What's over there? Do I want to look over there? Because the spleen and the pancreas paired with the stomach are like the information like taker inners. So like, you know, what you give yourself is the quality of your thoughts. So whether it's food, whether it's information, whether it is like programming, whether it is spiritual practices or not, whatever you're giving yourself, your spleen is like, your body's like, this is how I'm nourished. This is how I'm nourished. And that's why you have to have discernment, right? And so a healthy spleen will have focus and discernment. It's like, should I be taking this in right now? Because it's going to become me. And so all of it is really like all of these pieces interweaving together, right? You see that because the liver visions and then the spleen discerns it. And then, you know, it's like, yes, you steer in that direction, your legs start walking towards it, and your hands are like communicating and conversing and making contact with the world that it's now in relationship to because it's shifted, right? It's going to change everything about your body. Sounds like all my organs are in confusion, LOL, like something is unplugged. And you know, it's so funny. It's kind of like a joke that I make. It's like when I start working with a body, especially like, you know, when I would really teach more physically, if someone would come in first time doing yoga and I was like, oh, I can't even tell where it's off. It's like someone that didn't know how to clean their house and you go into their house and you're like, every room is messy. How do I even know like where to start? And then you start cleaning slowly, right? You start putting things away, you start moving things around and you're like, oh, it all just came from this room. This room exploded everywhere. And so it really comes back to, again, it's like there's a root. And that root is like, and it's just warping everything because the body is always adjusting, right? It's so smart. The body's like, if you're going to go here, I'm going to like change this and this and this and this and this and this and this. And then all of a sudden everything's like shifted, right? But when you can get deeper, deeper into the root of like, oh my God, it's just my left leg. Like I had no idea. I didn't use it, or I used it too much, or whatever, you know? And that's why we're just like always like looking for these barometers in time and these markers in time of like, where did my body get broken? What was going on in my life? Like, you know, it's just, there's just these deeper underpinnings of what is coming up, right? And then when we notice like specific things like always coming up with like the lungs or the nose or breathing or skin stuff, right? We know it's like, okay, like let's work with the lungs. And also in the 5-element cycle, every element nurtures the next. So lungs are nurturing and mothering the kidneys. They're birthing the kidneys. Please lead me to the answer. You're giving me hope. Yeah, you know, and like you just dive into the material and you learn more and more and more. And it's just like, it's gonna come in. How could it not? What's the thing is like the moment you choose the path, the end is certain, right? The moment you choose the path, the end is certain. And so it's like, okay, start, right? Like we start the path and we know we'll get there, but we just have to keep taking the steps, even if we don't know the bigger picture, right? And so, oh, sorry, I was going through the lungs feed the kidneys feed the liver feeds the heart feeds the spleen, and the spleen feeds the lungs. And so if the lungs are weak, you know, we support the lungs, but also we go into the spleen. It's the mother. It's like, okay, what kinds of foods are we eating? Quality of your thoughts, because if the thoughts are in fear or worry all the time, it's gonna be really hard to breathe, right? And so we're looking to really recalibrate the body as like a whole thing. Like it's not just one thing that, you know, there's like a source and a root, but the one thing is the whole thing. And so we have to look at it as a bigger picture of like what is really coming up. And so some people, you know, if we have 3 parts of the body, some people are kickers, right? They really know how to kick when they're swimming. Some people are swimming and they're like the arm people that just like know how to do the arms. And some people just like can barely keep their head out of the water. And so you start to understand like where you're good. Are you a kicker? Are you a stroker? You're just like trying to stay up, you know, and then working the parts of the body that aren't as strong, because the strength is always what blows out. If I'm always using my right hand all the time, it will blow out, right? And then I'm going to have to rely on something else. So you start to brush your teeth now with the other hand. You like start to like, you know, take that other turn for your car so it's not always like veering in the same direction all the time, because 1 degree off course is 60 nautical miles. So the moment you realize you're disoriented, you want to quickly retrack. When I'm doing yoga, gardening, doing art, I just keep working. It is never done, but more and more and more. Joy of life. Yeah, and that's what life is. Life is more and more and more and more. It's infinite expansion. It's infinite potential. It's infinite limitlessness, right? And so it's like the conditioning that tells us that it's limited, that, you know, we should be in fear of it, or that there's not enough, when there is, right? It's just the perception needs to shift. And so the more and more we work on our body, just like Justine says, the more and more we do things we love, the more and more we're around people that are inspired, we realize it gives us more and more and more and more. And so we really want to shift ourselves into that expansive state. At the moment I'm feeling contracted, this is where things are going to start to sit and squeeze and like get stuck in the body. And so we want to open up to that, right? We want to feel more love through that. And that's why, you know, before you like learn something that's like, you know, when you do something, you're just like, oh, I have to do this. And you're just like so bummed about it, but you have to do it, like taxes. I don't know. What do you hate? But you learn to like be in the state of that which you love more often, right? So if I like love yoga, every day I'm in yoga or like doing my practice or breath work, or I love gardening, I'm outside, or love walking through the woods. I'm doing that a lot and programming my body to feel that. And then when you're doing something you don't like, you still get to bring the same frequency into what you don't like, right? And these are just like sneaky ways to like make it more enjoyable, right? So like, what do you love when you're out in the forest, or like when you're at home doing yoga? Are you lighting incense? Are you playing music? Like, are you in your body? When you're doing things that you don't like, can you weave that in so that you're like, oh, I actually like don't mind this, you know? If I'm like doing stuff, I'll just be like moving my body, even if I don't like it. And then it's like, it makes it more fun, you know? And there's like these sneaky tricks in life that like, you get to decide how you feel about things. And even if they're things you have to do, you get to show up any way you want. So why would you not want to show up, you know, as your best self, ready to like just do it and to just get it done? And so when we're working with the body in this way, it's really to begin to understand that the body is whole in and of itself,
right? Like, yes, it's a piece of the whole, but it's also whole, and it feels like you vibrated with the spirit. Yeah, exactly. There's a spirit in Texas. You know, and there's also something to be said about the things that you really don't like to do. Someone likes to do it. So where can you like give it to someone else? When we're working in the body, it's really about understanding ourselves, like really truly understanding ourselves so that we can be in our honest truth. Because when we are in our honest expression, we will be radio transmitters for more of that, right? If we're confused all the time and conflicted, we will be radio transmitters for more confusion and more confliction. And so we really want to learn to regulate ourselves in this practice, to be in the body, to like love the body, to give the body care, to understand the body, to listen to the body. And just by that listening, the universe starts listening, right? Everything around us becomes more clear, more clarity is brought into our field. And so it's like when you're in the flow and you're just like, oh, I'm bringing in the best things right now, and this feels good and this feels good. Like that's an energy. Right? And it's about really learning to be in the flow of you and who you are, and using the practices to understand the body more. So we're about 35 minutes in. If you have any questions, pop them in the chat. I kind of just wanted, you know, this call to be really more about like, let's figure out like where it just feels off in the body, because any of that little piece that's off, like it's bringing in those things, you know, in life where you're like, why does that keep happening? And let that be a reflection, you know, what feels a little bit off in life? What feels a little bit off in the body? And these are all like things that are connected. Everything's on this like spectrum of frequencies or energies, or like how it feels, right? Just like the emotions, like sadness feels a certain way, happiness feels a certain way, grief feels a certain way, anxiety feels a certain way. Like they all have different frequencies. And so we're just really looking to calibrate our field. Not that we don't feel things, we feel things fully. We move through the whole integrative experience of them, but we're like listening, right? We're feeling of like what experiences feel like in the world, and it will reflect back other things to us, like that doesn't feel good. And then we're learning to build our intuition, right? And so it's just fun to really play in the body and to understand things just in a different lens, right? Because it just gives you stuff to do at home. It's like DIY self-care, you know, self-help. And yeah, if you do like in the free practices in the app or on my YouTube, I don't know, the YouTube has, if you're watching this on YouTube, it has ads. So if you go into the app, there's tons of free practices that you can do to really begin to like embody more of these practices, to like be in your body, to open your body up, to notice that when you're in a pose, what feels really tight? Is there specific parts of my body that feel really tight? And do those poses more. The poses that are harder are the ones that you need, right? And then, yeah, we're starting our shoulder series. Gosh, I think in like less than 2 weeks. So I'm super excited about that. If you haven't joined yet, we're going to be mapping the palm. We're going to be using the pole work to open up, like I said, this whole field of the arms and the lungs so that we can nurture ourselves for winter, get the lungs ready for the cold, right? Lungs want to stay warm. And yeah, and then the foot mapping series, we went through all the stuff in the feet. So, you know, every month I'm going to try to bring in like a different aspect of the body or a different aspect of the practices for all of you. And so if you ever have any requests, if you have any requests for this call, if you have any requests for like workshop series or things that you want to work on, you know, just always reach out to me in the app, on Instagram, wherever you'd like, and let me know, because, you know, when I know what you want, I can like weave it all in. So if no one has any questions, I'm going to hop off of here so I can get the recording up, and I will see you, I think, next Wednesday at 11 a.m. And if it ever changes, I will always just cancel the call in the app, just because I've got so much moving parts in my life right now. Oh, where do you suggest I start? I seem to get so overwhelmed that I want to go to sleep. It's like everything has been unplugged. I know this is a new discovery for me. Before this was a trainer all about wellness, and now it's so hard to do what I used to love. Yeah, and that can be like so this sense of overwhelm is sometimes like it's with the mind, right? Like disassociation, especially if the body wants to go to sleep. It's just where parts are like unplugged, like you just said. I would do like really easy restorative poses where you're just laying on blocks, whether it's like a supported bridge pose or a fish pose or a reclined blocks under the shoulders. There's a few in my app under free practices. Like those are the best places to just put your body in a posture and breathe and start to feel safe and trust your body again, that you don't need to go to sleep, right? And like leave the body. That would be my suggestion. Yeah, I disassociate from so much. And so, yeah, just being really gentle and coming back to the body. Tiny breathwork practices, allowing like what wants to come up to come through, because usually when we disassociate, we're scared of something, right? And disassociation is so complex, because when we experience traumas, especially like brain traumas and stuff like that, it's like a piece of glass shatters and the whole entire memory is broken into like microbits because our brain can't handle it, right? And so it fragments it. And it's like, I'm going to process all of this later because it can only process a small bit. And so disassociation is like, there's so much about holding oneself and like you're safe, you're not alone, you know, like just really doing gentle, kind things in your body is one of the best ways to like bring yourself back and to like, yeah, I just cried, just to cry, to like feel that grief, you know, and that pain. Like it's all about feeling it so it can move through and not repressing it or avoiding it. You know, we tend to avoid discomfort in this culture, but it leads to a lot of repression and unspoken words and resentments. When you do spine warm up, you do a lot and fairly fast, like cat cow or spiral spine. So much air in and out. Should I try to push more or do to my speed? There's many different ways to do it. Yeah, I go in and out and in and out and in and out. You can go slow. You can do both because the thing is like, see which is comfortable and uncomfortable to you, because what's also uncomfortable to you is where you don't want to go. And so there's always a lot of gold in where you don't want to go. When I do my breathwork practice, sometimes it's fast, sometimes it's slow. Also a little hot tip, some people on my YouTube channel are like, you talk too fast. Like, okay, then slow it down. Like there's playback speed down below. There's like a gear icon both in the app and on YouTube that you can actually slow it down or speed it up if you don't think I talk fast enough. But you can choose your own adventure, which is actually what I love, because when I get into it, I just start talking. Yeah, it's so fun. Sometimes I like to slow it down to like the slowest, and then it's like you're watching someone like this. I do one-on-ones. Yeah, there, if you go on my Stand store, up on my Instagram page, or like if any of the click links in the Rooted in resource will take you to my website, then that's linked there. And I do one-on-ones. And in the one-on-ones, it's really nice because, you know, I do an intake form where we can like look at your body and read your body a little bit and then give you postures that are appropriate for like your body. And then you get the recording that you can download to your computer, and then you can always have it. So it's like a personal resource for yourself, because this information is so much, and it's like when you hear it, it's like, oh my God, I just like, there's so much for me in it. Like there'll be so much in it, you know, that you can just listen to again and again and always get new insights. Like that's how this material works. So everyone, thank you so much for being here. And yeah, let me know if you have any questions. You know, Instagram, you can message me on the app itself just by hitting chat. And then, yeah, email anything that you want. Just let me know if you have specific things that you want me to go into. Thank you everyone so much. Have a beautiful day.